Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And for this week and next week, it's going to be from 7:30 a.m. till 9:30 a.m. And so toward the end of this month, we'll go back to our 7 to 9, but I'm kind of programmed myself to say 7 to 9. But during the 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., I've been serving at my church, and we are having what is called the 21 Days of Prayer. So if any of you want to join us, it's Stockbridge Community Church in Stockbridge, Georgia. We are streaming it online live, and it starts at 6:30 a.m. Eastern. That might be early for some people on the West Coast, but definitely if you're on the East Coast, it's still kind of early, but it's 6:30 a.m. that it starts. And so with that, let's get to our Kids Corner.
Named Marcus. Marcus was smart and quick-witted, but loved taking shortcuts. His motto was, "Why work hard when I can find an easier way?" Mrs. Mira announced a kite-flying competition. She said, "Whoever builds the best kite and flies it the highest will win a big surprise." Marcus was excited. He thought, "Why waste time making a kite when I can just use an old one from my attic?" When the whistle blew, the kites soared into the sky. But Marcus's kite wobbled, and within seconds, the strings snapped. His kite crashed to the ground. Feeling defeated, Marcus sat under a tree. Mrs. Mira noticed and walked over. She said gently, "Marcus, sometimes the easiest way isn't the best way. Effort builds strength and teaches us valuable lessons." Marcus entered the kite competition again, this time with a bold and colorful kite he had built himself. His kite soared higher than everyone else's, and he won the grand prize. Smiling brightly, Marcus said, "I learned that effort leads to real success, and shortcuts only hold us back." And so, Marcus learned the true meaning of the law of least effort. While shortcuts may seem tempting, it's our hard work and determination that lead to the most rewarding successes.
Yes, and it's always to remember to work smarter, right? Working smarter isn't a bad thing. That's what's gotten us to where we are now. People working smarter, not necessarily not working harder. Working harder means you might put 5 steps in when it only takes 3, becoming more efficient, right? But you shouldn't take shortcuts to get out of doing the actual work. And I think that's more of the premise of the story, making sure that we're actually doing the work. And with that, we're going to get into our prayer of Jabez. God help us to be more, God bless us with more than what we need so we can be a blessing to others. God, give us influence so that we can make a difference. God, make us aware of your presence. And God, protect us from every attack of the devil. In 1 Chronicles 4:10 says, Jabez cried out to the God of Israel, "Oh, that you would bless me and enlarge my territory. Let your hand be with me and keep me from harm so that I will be free from pain." And God granted his request. So God does hear us. He does grant our request. I'm going to be going through a few articles this morning that I've come across. I know that a lot of people have heard about Trump possibly wanting to invoke the Insurrection Act in Minnesota. And it's sad where we are at as a country right now, because there are so many people divided. And the sad part is their hatred of one individual so much, just one individual, and that would be our president, to the point where they would sacrifice the rest of us. Like that's intense to me. That's intense to me. Because under the previous administration, we had millions of people brought here illegally. These people were given resources. These people were given aid and comfort. Some of these people were a part of gangs terrorizing other individuals, and those individuals were told, No, they're not terrorizing you. They're not stealing from you. They're not holding you up. They're not abusing you. So President Trump comes in, he's like, okay, we've got to clean up this mess. And there are people literally protesting to protect people that are here illegally. Like, what happened to us? It's that part that I need people to slow down on. Because why are you out in the street protesting? You're calling ICE Gestapo. Who else is going to get these people removed from the soil? Because they're not going to leave. They already have deportation orders to leave. The mayor's not helping. They're not containing these people until ICE gets there to pick them up. The governor's not doing anything. And this is in several states. This is not just in Minnesota. This is a contagion that has taken our country by storm. But what is wrong? I'll tell you what's wrong. There are people that have truly relinquished their souls. This is what depraved minds look like. This is what reprobate looks like. Because a reprobate mind says good is evil and evil is good. That's a reprobate mind. God said he would turn you over. We all have free will. All of us. And we have individuals in this country that have chosen a reprobate mind. So with that, I'm going to get into our first video. And this one is looking at the lawsuit that the Good family is looking to bring forth against the federal government.
On here too, live now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Always great to be with you as we continue to roll on, bringing you the top stories, headlines, and of course, live feeds and breaking news as it happens. You are watching live now. All right, now to our next story that we are following for you. The family of Renee Nicole Good has hired an attorney who represented the family of George Floyd back in 2020. The prestigious law firm in Chicago has been retained by Good's partner, her parents, and her sibling as well. The law firm represented Floyd's family after his death, which ended in a $27 million settlement. For more on this, and we want to continue to bring you the very, very latest insight and analysis. We bring in our next guest to help break it all down, Eric Schwartzreich, attorney and a legal analyst. Thanks so much for being with us here, Eric. And tell us a little bit about this law firm and what this move makes for the family here.
All right, good evening. So the argument that's going to be advanced is it's about authority, it's about adherence to the law. And the argument they're going to make is, did the federal officers act within the scope of their authority, and was there adherence to the law? The causes of action, because these are federal officers, are going to be limited. They're going to look under the Federal Torts Claim Act, which is a very limited law. And what you have to do under that law is you first have to notify, in this case, the Department of Homeland Security. They have 6 months to either respond, to either admit liability, which that's not going to happen. That'll be a cold day in hell, or to deny liability. If they deny that liability and there is no jury trial right there's no discovery, there's no depositions, then you can go into court and it's going to be a bench trial. In other words, in front of a federal judge. And it's different than a civil rights cause of action, which would be a Bivens claim. We hear in state court these 1983 actions. And then under a Bivens action, and they can file both at the same time, the argument can be whether constitutional rights were violated. Fourth Amendment, unlawful search and seizure. The Fifth Amendment, the Eighth Amendment, unusual, cruel punishment. And what this does is send a message. They hope to try and get a fact-gathering process, to do an independent investigation, and to let the federal government know that there's going to be a lawsuit, and that they're looking for accountability. So that's where that comes into play.
And Eric, tell us just how big of a factor. Last week we saw the video released of the officer's cell phone footage of when the officer was hit and the gunshots rang out. Tell us how that will factor in to this case here.
Well, that depends, right? Verdicts or people's decisions, they don't necessarily come from facts. They come from how people view things, the lens in which they view things, how they understand the law. So it's really not clear cut here as to whether or not you want to look at the videos. You have the federal government, saying that this was justified, this was a lawful purpose, they were attacked. That Good tried to run over the officer. The officer, his perception, he's had an experience before where another car tried to run him over. And really, what it comes down to is how do you view this? What side of the fence do you sit on? So we're seeing all these videos, we're seeing protesters, we're seeing the federal government weigh in. And in this case, they weighed in pretty quickly because typically you'll see an investigation. It's not often that there's a statement authored by the Department of Homeland Security or the president saying nothing to see here. So a lot of it really depends upon how the viewers or a federal judge or a jury, because 12 different jurors, I mean, it shouldn't have been the book or the movie 12 Angry Men. It's really 12 biased people or 12 biased life perception people. How do they view it? Because 12 different people in federal civil trials are unanimous, can view something completely different. Was this justified? Was the Constitution violated? If they do a Federal Torts Claim Act, because the federal government is sovereign immunity, but that is a procedure that allows the government to be sued. And in this case, look under Minnesota law to see if there was any tort that was violated, any wrongdoing, negligence, not adhering to training, wrongful hiring. Because when you bring a Federal Torts Claim Act, you're not suing the person, you're suing Uncle Sam. You're suing the federal government. You don't even get federal damages there. Under a Bivens cause of action, then we're looking at these constitutional allegations and these perceived or actual, if they existed, constitutional violations. Was there unlawful search and seizure under the Fourth Amendment? Was there a due process violation? Under the Eighth Amendment, was what happened to Miss Good cruel and unusual punishment?
And what timeline do you see all of this taking?
Well, it's very difficult under the Federal Torts Claim Act because first you have to put on notice the federal agency here, Department of Homeland Security. There's a 2-year statute of limitations, but once that's filed, and I imagine that's going to get filed quickly, the government has 6 months to either say we admit or we deny, and then that can move forward. At the same time, you might expect the Bivens actions or lawsuit to be filed where you can have a jury trial, but you have to be careful when you do that because if they lose under the Federal Torts Claims Act, they can also be precluded from suing the officers under a Bivens action. So I expect it'll move quickly. I expect different lawsuits, and there's also going to be a civil investigation done by this law firm because the federal government has said we're not going to cooperate with the states. We're not going to give discovery. So what you're going to expect the civil law firm to do is to go out there, preserve, collect evidence, interview witnesses, and try to do everything they can to collect the evidence. And it should move rapidly, but with the cooperation going on between the state and the federal government, I mean, this is something that could take years. Very different than the Floyd case, which Romanucci, who's the attorney that was hired, was involved in getting that verdict, a negotiated settlement in that case.
Could the officer sue the estate of Renee Good?
Listen, the officers would have to make a claim. I mean, we've heard reports about an officer having internal bleeding, that an officer was almost run over. So if this, if Miss Good or a person did something that was improper or violated, that officer's rights or committed a tort or a battery on that officer, an officer can, in return, bring a lawsuit against an individual. In fact, that will happen sometimes.
And lastly, Eric, non-legal minds looking at this would say, okay, this is much different than the George Floyd case. George Floyd was going about his business, doing what he was doing that day, and then wound up dead. For Renee Good, it seemed like her and her partner were seeking out these ICE agents. How will that play a role here in this?
Well, the cases are also, before I answer and respond to that, they're also different, right? That involved state actors, state officers, municipal agencies. So that was done under a classic 1983 civil rights action. And that case involved multiple officers. Here, while there were multiple officers, there was one officer involved that fired the gun. But as far as what's transpired here and everything that we've seen take place, that will have an effect as to the outcome, and then very different than the Floyd case. And what also can be involved here is comparative negligence. So, the argument that they were agitators, the argument can be advanced that government was involved in a discretionary function, if you will, exercising the discretion, and that the allegation can be made, or the argument that Good and her family were following these officers, not following protocol, tried to run the officer over, tried to kill the officer. So that is going to have a play, and comparative negligence can come into play. And what we have here is there doesn't seem to be a federal investigation going on in reference to, well, at least criminal culpability of the officers. Completely different, but also we saw in the Floyd case.
So many different moving parts. That's why we're so glad to have you on, Eric. We appreciate all of the updates and analysis. We know this will not be wrapping up soon, so we appreciate it.
Yeah. So it is going to be interesting to see, because as the attorney was stating, this is under federal, because this involves federal agents. It does not involve state agents or state officers, as in the Floyd case. So I'm like, okay, it's going to be interesting to see, because again, with George Floyd, as he stated, he was just kind of going about his regular day and his regular business, right? These individuals, allegedly, and I'll use those terms, even though we've all seen the video, but allegedly, Renee Good and her widow, who is now a widow, they were following around ICE agents. They were involved in actively interrupting and impeding federal agents. So they were already in violation of Title 18, Section 111. Like, that is a federal law. Like, you cannot disrupt federal agents from doing their job, period. I don't care how you feel, because this is all about feelings right now. This has nothing to do with the law. This is all about emotions and feelings, and they are truly feeding the beast right now with all of the emotions and feelings and the, just keeping that demonic energy going. And it is demonic. It is not positive. It's dark. It is very dark and demonic. And I don't know if anybody else out there can feel that or see that. I do. I don't like it, because anything coming from a good place is going to, you're going to get good outcomes. Anything coming from a dark place, you're going to get bad outcomes. It is what it is. Now we're going to go into our next video, and this is Brandon Lehman. He's talking about Trump wanting to invoke the Insurrection Act, and it would start in Minnesota. I've got another video about it as well, and looking at the different states that President Trump may invoke the Insurrection Act. So this is something we really need to stay on top of and be mindful of.
And gentlemen, Donald Trump is finally doing it. Minneapolis has completely descended into absolute chaos. Last night, rioters broke into ICE vehicles, stole their weapons and government documents that reveal names and addresses of the ICE agents in Minneapolis. This comes after another shooting in Minneapolis where an ICE agent was violently attacked by 3 men with shovels. And this morning, Donald Trump announced to the entire world that it is time for the Insurrection Act. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel, but let's see the footage of rioters breaking into ICE vehicles and stealing their weapons.
Hey, listen, I'll tell y'all now, they on the Snapchat, so they gonna be on y'all ass if y'all recording this. They gonna be on your ass. They gonna be on your ass. Your ass is a witness. Hey, don't hit them.
Oh, wow.
Oh my.
And I just wanted to say, for all of these individuals that are there, that are caught on camera, just know that our government has geofencing and technology to ping each and every cell phone there. Each and every cell phone. So just know you're going to have a knock on your door of what you did, because you are committing a crime on camera. This is a crime that you are involved in gleefully. This is a disgrace. This is a disgrace. And for Tim Walz, Governor Tim Walz, and for Mayor Fry to basically, they continue to fuel the flame to this. They continue to incite this type of behavior in their state and in the city. This is not going to go well.
God. Oh my God.
This happened because the Minneapolis Police Department is refusing to keep the peace at the explicit order of the mayor and the governor. And even if they weren't being explicitly told to stand down, the Minneapolis PD doesn't even have the capabilities to do anything about it, since they defunded their police department after George Floyd. And run the clip back and take a look at who actually stole the guns from the back of that car. It was some man with some giant face tattoo. So now government weaponry is getting in the hands of gang members. But these riots occurred because earlier in the day, an ICE agent shot an illegal who was viciously attacking ICE agents with two other people who also had weapons. Let's take a look.
DHS says at 6:50 p.m. Central Time tonight, quote, federal law enforcement officers were conducting a targeted traffic stop in Minneapolis of an illegal alien from Venezuela who was released into the country by Joe Biden in 2022. In an attempt to evade arrest, the subject fled the scene in his vehicle and crashed into a parked car. The subject then fled on foot. The law enforcement officer caught up to the subject on foot and attempted to apprehend him when the subject began to resist and violently assault the officer. While the subject and law enforcement were in a struggle on the ground, two subjects came out of a nearby apartment and also attacked the law enforcement officer with a snow shovel and broom handle. As the officer was being ambushed and attacked by the two individuals, the original subject got loose and began striking the officer with a shovel or broomstick. Fearing for his life and safety as he was being ambushed by three individuals, the officer fired defensive shots to defend his life. The initial subject was hit in the leg. All three subjects ran back into the apartment and barricaded themselves inside. The attacked officer and subject are both in the hospital. Both attackers are in custody. This is another attack. This attack on another brave member of law enforcement took place while Minnesota's top leaders, Governor Walz and Mayor Fry, are actively encouraging an organized resistance to ICE and federal law enforcement officers. Their hateful rhetoric and resistance against men and women who are simply trying to do their jobs must end.
The mayor of Minneapolis and the governor, Tim Walz, are actively encouraging protesters to use violence to prevent the federal government from enforcing immigration law. It is a textbook dictionary definition of insurrection. These psychotic, brainwashed liberals believe they are engaging in noble righteousness by attacking ICE agents with shovels to defend and protect criminal illegal aliens. The difference between what the left and the right stands for has never been more glaringly obvious. Using violence to dissuade the government from enforcing the laws is some third world banana republic political terrorism. So I guess the mayor of Minneapolis wasn't lying when he said Somalis are enriching their community, because now liberals are adopting the same violent cultural values of Somalis that led to the destabilization of their country. But let's hear from the mayor of Minneapolis throwing more fuel on the fire after the second ICE shooting in his city, and then we'll get to Trump dropping the hammer on the state of Minnesota.
There's still a lot that we don't know at this time, but what I can tell you for certain is that this is not sustainable. This is an impossible situation that our city is presently being put in. And at the same time, we are trying to find a way forward to keep people safe, to protect our neighbors, to maintain order. And we're in a position right now where we have residents that are asking the very limited number of police officers that we have to fight ICE agents on the street, to stand by their neighbors. We cannot be at a place right now in America where we have two governmental entities that are literally fighting one another. Why are we put in this position? We're put in this position because we have approximately 600 police officers in Minneapolis, far fewer that are able to work at any given time. And there are approximately 3,000 ICE agents in the area. 3,000.
I love how liberals blame Donald Trump for the chaos and say it could be prevented if the federal government just stopped enforcing the law. The mayor says the city is being put in an impossible position. Actually, you're not. All you have to do is stop engaging in political terrorism. All you have to do is stop rebelling against the federal government because you're completely controlled by Somali pirates. Just because Joe Biden decided that immigration law doesn't exist doesn't mean that that's the status quo. Just because the babysitter lets you stay up past your bedtime doesn't mean your parents now can't enforce the rules, and they're fascists for doing so. And that's why this morning Donald Trump put out a bombshell announcement to let the politicians of Minnesota know this is no longer a game. He said, if the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in that once great state. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And I'm sure the Democrats will try and call Trump an authoritarian, but I bet morally they had no problem with the Insurrection Act being invoked to stop protesters from blocking black students from integrating into white schools. Because everything they believe in is righteous and just and good. So using the military to enforce their ideology is morally justified. But Tim Walz made his own post to reiterate and clarify that the state of Minnesota is in fact in open rebellion against the federal government. He said, state investigators have been on the scene in North Minneapolis. I know you're angry. I'm angry. What Donald Trump wants is violence in the street. But Minnesota will remain an island of decency, of justice, of community, and of peace. Don't give him what he wants. When he refers to Minnesota as an island, he's implying that the rest of the country has been infected by this plague of fascism. But Minnesota stands as this isolated beacon of hope, disconnected from the tyranny and authoritarianism of the rest of the country. The rules and laws of the illegitimate Nazi government don't apply in Minnesota. They stand for decency and community, righteous euphemisms that motivate delusional, self-hating white liberals to go give their lives for Somali fraudsters. But Tim Walz, keen on inciting more violence, held a press conference where he said ICE is now going door to door, dragging brown people from their homes.
Federal government is raining down upon our communities. 2,000 to 3,000 armed agents of the federal government have been deployed to Minnesota. Armed, masked, undertrained ICE agents are going door to door, ordering people to point out where.
And I want to say it's a little disingenuous for him to say untrained, because there are ICE agents that have been there for over a decade. So for him to make a blanketed statement like that isn't factual. Now, if he said some are untrained, that would be more factual. But to blanket it like that, not good.
Their neighbors of color live. They help us establish a record of exactly what's happening in our communities. You have an absolute right to peacefully film ICE agents as they conduct these activities. So carry your phone with you at all times.
Within a reasonable distance. And if those ICE agents tell you, hey, you can't be here, keep it going. Get to a safe distance. Okay, and do not impede their investigations, because you don't know how that stuff is going to go down. You don't know if those people that they're getting are violent, might start shooting at them. You might get caught up in that. Okay, Title 18, Section 111 is real. It is a real crime. It's a real crime. If you interfere in their investigation. If you were to film, you need to do it at a reasonable distance that's not right in their investigation and impede their investigation. Like you have every right to film them. Sir, you're going to get people hurt doing this. I'm just saying, Governor Tim Walz, get it together.
And if you see these ICE agents in your neighborhood, take out that phone and hit record. Help us create a database of the atrocities against Minnesotans, not just to establish a record for posterity, but to bank evidence for future prosecution.
So Tim Walz is threatening ICE agents not to enforce the law because Democrats will once again weaponize the justice system and prosecute them in these deep blue kangaroo courts just like they did Donald Trump whenever they take back power. And then he's spreading the cheap, blatant lie that ICE is just going door to door, rounding up all the brown people they can because he wants black Americans to head to the front line, to put their body on the line to die by ICE. Because that will give the propaganda machine their sympathetic black victim. I'm gonna keep saying it. Black people, stay at home. This is not your fight. The Democrats love illegal Somali fraudsters way more than they love you. They want you to think that the Somali struggle is your struggle because they're a bunch of racists who think that you're the same because you're both black people. But let's be clear, the Somalis don't see us that way. They see themselves as a completely different people with a completely different culture, a completely different set of values. That's why they sent all the stolen fraud money back to Somalia. I didn't see them using any of that money to invest in underserved black neighborhoods. They didn't open up any daycares to actually benefit the black residents of Minneapolis. No, they stole tax dollars that were meant to help your children and funneled it all back to their home country for their personal gain. But this last clip I'm gonna show you really hammers in the absolute lawlessness that is occurring in Minneapolis. Rioters are now harassing and detaining regular old people who they suspect might be ICE agents. Watch this.
Here you go. Here, like I said, I don't have to do this. I'm happy to do this. That's all. We just got to stop this.
So he's got a lot of camera equipment. I think we can say this isn't ICE.
Yeah, I'm not. I tried to tell the first lady that nobody believes me. That's all I can do is tell you. I already shot. Listen, first of all, I don't have to do any of that, but I'm kind. I respect what you are doing. Yeah, no. I really appreciate what you guys are doing. I just took this time to do the job, and I don't know how to do it.
Were you here yesterday?
Yeah.
Yes, he was here yesterday. I didn't testify that. I didn't recognize him.
No, I appreciate your help. Thank you.
I'm not here to help you.
No,
I think the fact that you're in a vehicle like this at this time
I get it. But with all due respect to everybody, I can get help away drive.
Well, you can. You go rent something else. I mean, if you're part of the media.
That's not how it works.
This is my business.
I know, but this is not how it works. So anyhow, I hope you guys understand. Not here to
He was here with a video camera yesterday.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's just a little too far. First of all, that's called kidnapping. By the way, when you illegally detain someone against their will and they detain this person against their will, that's called kidnapping. Period. If I was this man, I would press charges against any of those individuals there because they were all complicit in the kidnapping. Just so you know, people cannot detain you for any reason. And if you are in fear of your safety while in their presence and they're saying that you cannot leave their presence, it's called kidnapping. It's happened to me. That's why I know that law real well. And for them to say, well, you just need to get another vehicle. What is wrong with people? That's demonic. That is completely demonic. It's gone too far. That's all I can say. It's gone too far.
Because this man drove a Chevy Suburban, rioters assumed he was driving an ICE vehicle and forced him to pop his trunk and reveal the contents within his car to prove that he actually wasn't an ICE agent. Because the police are doing nothing to stop these people, and now they think they're the law. That's why you heard the sanctimonious liberal woman at the end say, well, you need to go get a new car. Your car looks too similar to what ICE agents are driving, so you're obligated to spend money you don't have to make us feel more comfortable. This is a wild time, and this chaos cannot be allowed to fester. Entitled liberals cannot be allowed to hold our country hostage and violently obstruct federal agents from doing their jobs. That's why I am personally in favor of Trump invoking the Insurrection Act. In fact, I think it's long overdue. He's been extremely gracious. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. If you
What do you guys think? I truthfully, I do not want the Insurrection Act invoked, and saying it sounds like, oh yeah, this sounds really helpful. Well, let's just take a look at the Insurrection Act, shall we? So the Insurrection Act of 1807 allows the U.S. president to deploy federal military forces domestically to enforce federal laws, suppress insurrection, or quell domestic violence when requested by a state. That's the part. The state has to request it, or when the president deems it necessary. Okay, so we've got two views, right? So right now, Minnesota, they don't want ICE there. That's why we have this rebellion in essence. So if President Trump deems it necessary, this is where we can go. So invocation isn't common. It's been used sparingly in history. So during 1992, during the Los Angeles riots, or post Hurricane Katrina in 2005, and the process can unfold rapidly, often within hours to days, depending on the crisis urgency and logistics. Below is a hypothetical timeline for invocation today, January 16, 2026, based on statutory requirements, historical precedents, and current legal frameworks. Note that this assumes a scenario like widespread unrest where federal intervention is justified. Actual events could vary based on political, legal, or operational factors. So let's just say Donald Trump says, we're invoking this. This is how it would hypothetically play out. I just wanted to let you guys know that this is something that could happen in our country. And I feel so bad. My husband, he's a retired veteran, as I shared with you guys, and it's just breaking his heart to see what's happening on our soil. He did 2 tours in Iraq, 2 tours in Afghanistan, and it is just like he can't believe what's happening right now. He goes, "This is what I fought for," and it's horrible what is happening. And I definitely hold both parties responsible, but this progressive mindset that has really infiltrated our country to the point where lawlessness is happening. I wasn't living in California in 1992, but I had grown up in California during like 91, 92. I was staying in Indiana. And so when the riots were happening, I had stayed in those areas near Lamar Park, which was predominantly Black Americans, and Baldwin Hills, which predominantly Black Americans. It's now Asian and Hispanic. But I remember it being burned down. I remember the riots and how they happened, and they had to invoke the act at that time because the chaos was so widespread. We look at the George Floyd riots. They had nothing on California during 1992. You guys remember that gentleman that got pulled from his truck and was, nearly beaten to death? That was happening all over the city. It was complete chaos. And even at that time, they had bussed in rioters. And we didn't know it at the time, but they were still paying people to be to cause havoc and to actually cause the riot that happened. They were paid agitators even then in 1992. And we didn't know about things like that. You know, the advent of the internet wasn't what it is now. You know, when we saw the recording of Rodney King, you know, that was kind of like the first time we really saw what was happening in the Los Angeles Police Department. And that's what led to the riots that happened. I don't want to see that again in my lifetime. I think people forget how devastating that was. I need the people of Minneapolis, Minnesota to wake up. You do not have the officers available, and you wanted your police defunded. And this is why your state has devolved into the chaos that it is in now. Stop it. Let ICE do their job and get these people up off the soil, because they need to be. People here illegally need to be returned to their home country, period. And you need to stop interrupting that. Or the chaos that you think you want to cry for, you don't want this. You do not want this. I'm just telling you. Now, day one, presidential assessment and consultation, so 0 to 24 hours. The president would consult with advisors, including the Attorney General, Department of Defense officials, and possibly congressional leaders, though not required by law. So he could just do this, you know what I'm saying, with his cabinet and just be like, let's go. So intelligence from agencies like FBI or DHS would inform the decision. No formal timeline here, but in urgent cases, this could happen in minutes via secure briefings. Now, state request or unilateral decision, right, if they were in agreement to do this, if a state governor requests federal assistance, common trigger, the process accelerates. Otherwise, the president can act unilaterally if they determine that insurrection or rebellion prevents law enforcement. In 2026, the potential for real-time monitoring via social media and surveillance, this assessment could be near instant. Now, invocation and proclamation, issuance of proclamation. So per Title 10, Section 2052 and 2054, the president must first issue a public proclamation ordering insurgents or obstructors to disperse and return home peacefully. So he's got to give them the opportunity to stop. Okay. This is typically broadcast via White House statements, social media, and emergency alerts. Historical examples show this can occur the same day as the crisis escalates. President Bush in 1992 issued one within hours of riots starting. So the grace period, the proclamation usually includes a short window for compliance. If ignored, deployment follows. Deployment phase, days 1 through 3, mobilization. Active duty troops from the Army or National Guard, federalized under Title 10, could be deployed. Logistics involve alerting units, transporting them, right, and coordinating with local law enforcement. Now, we've already heard that in Minneapolis, they only have 600 officers. So right now, the ICE officers have them at 5 to 1. Okay. So in a modern context, rapid response follows, like the 82nd Airborne could be on the ground within 24 to 48 hours, as seen in past invocations. The Posse Comitatus Act is waived here, allowing military enforcement of civilian laws. So that means completely military is doing their thing. Doing their thing. This is crazy. Now, initial operations troops might secure key areas, enforce curfews, or aid in arrest. Duration depends on the situation, short term for quelling riots or longer for sustained unrest. Oversight and wind down phase, days 3 plus to months. So this could go within 72 hours and then we could be here for a year. I mean, I'm not just being like, I'm just saying. This is what could happen if we go down this pathway. I don't think President Trump wants to go down this way. I don't think anyone in our military, I don't think they want to have to on the soil that they have given their lives to protect, go against the very people here on this soil. I don't think they want that. I don't think they want that. But that's where we are. And that's so crazy. So I'll just read the headers. So congressional notification and potential oversight. The president must report to Congress within 48 hours explaining the reasons and scope. Congress could pass a resolution to terminate the deployment, right? Though this requires a veto proof majority, which is rare. So duration and termination. Deployments aren't indefinite. Thank goodness, they end when the president declares the threat is over. And this is in 30 to 60 days, but it doesn't have, could say months. Like I said, I'm like, ugh. So in 2026, with advanced tech like drones and AI monitoring, resolution could be faster, but legal challenges might extend it. Post-deployment review investigations by Congress, DOJ, or independent commissions often follow, as after the 2020 protest, where invocation was considered but not used. So they got close to it, but they didn't use it. Okay. So the political climate and legal precedents from recent years, if invoked properly, it could face immediate court injunctions from federal judges. This is a high-level overview. And I'm like, okay, and I respect that. Now, again, there's another article here on all sides where he was threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act. So on Truth Social, Trump wrote, if the corrupt politicians in Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act. It follows a night of protest and vandalism in Minneapolis after a second ICE-involved shooting where agents shot an unauthorized immigrant from Venezuela in the leg during the incident. An ICE agent was attacked by two individuals and in a nearby apartment building. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz responding, telling Trump, stop this campaign of retribution, while also telling Minnesotans to end the violence. Now, for context, and we just went over this, how the Insurrection Act was invoked, and I'll just go down. Let's say it has been used 30 times. The last time being in 1992 under President H.W. Bush during protests over Rodney King. The act is an exception to the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878, which limits the federal government's interference in state law enforcement. Trump has previously said he invoked the act, including during Black Lives Matter protests in 2020. Okay, so both Fox on the right and the Washington Post on the left characterized the threat as a response to ongoing violence and emphasized the Trump administration's accusations of Democrats stoking violence. Fox News quoted White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt saying Democrats have demeaned ICE agents and that protesters don't do this without encouragement from people in power. Washington Times noted calls from the Minnesota leaders to track and record ICE officers, autocracies, and share stories of business closures and rights violations by ICE agents. Outlets on the left and center detailed times when the Insurrection Act previously invoked, noting it is an exception to Posse Comitatus Act, right? NPR and Washington Post, which both lean left, emphasized the protest as a response to ICE-related violence, with the Post heavily detailing Wednesday night's shooting and the death of Renee Good. NPR quoted lawmakers who said they would take legal action if the act was invoked. This is just a sad state of affairs for our country. I feel so bad for the men and women of ICE and, just what they're having to go through. Because I hate to say it's not fair, but it isn't fair that, they've been called to sacrifice themselves and the general public sees them as the enemy when all they're doing is trying to keep them safe. It's very crazy what's going on in our country right now. But with that, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we will get back into some more of this news going on. I got a few more clips to share with you guys, but thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, and we will see you on the other side.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. With the energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science. At longevity. At exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Take your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. So I've got another video here, and this one is an interesting one. This is actually Joe Rogan, and a few people have been talking about this video because it's weird. Not weird. You are allowed to your opinion in this country, but we have to be safe. So let's check this out really quick. Oops. Let me stop sharing that screen. There we go. Now let's get into it.
Joe Rogan described it.
You don't want militarized people in the streets just roaming around, snatching people up, many of which turn out to actually be U.S. citizens that just don't have their papers on them. Are we really going to be the Gestapo? Where's your papers? Is that what we've come to?
That has also become a big part of this so-called enforcement. I mean, Minneapolis is not a huge place, okay? And they are absorbing thousands of federal officers, more than any other deployment that they've done so far. And we are seeing these encounters where you're seeing federal officers, maybe ICE agents, maybe Border Patrol, walking down the street, stopping people, sometimes because they look Somali or they look brown or whatever it is. This is according to those people who were stopped, and asking them, where are your papers? Show me your papers. Where were you born? That's the stuff that we're seeing. And Americans like Joe Rogan are concerned about it.
And I think part of it is, look, Joe Rogan's identity does not depend on defending Donald Trump and his administration doing things that are indefensible. And I see people all the time bending themselves on TV, bending themselves into all sorts of pretzel shape because they subsist from being a Trump supporter, and that's all they've got. Joe Rogan, I think, is speaking out of conviction, is speaking out of what he is seeing. And I think it's reflective of what a lot of Americans feel right now. People are showing up at the streets because they are pissed off at what is happening in our country. It is.
Okay, I'm going to stop right there. And I will let you guys continue because I got some guests that I want to bring on to get their feedback on this. So, oops, I had a guest. I guess they'll be back. But let's continue with the video. Let's see. Nope, she's here. I want to get her take on what's going on. So you guys know she's a friend of the show. Yes.
Hi,
Good morning.
Grand Rising.
Grand Rising. Oh my goodness. Okay, so Joe Rogan has now, he's on the let's call ICE names and make them straw men. And, kind of, I hate to say it. Why do people continue to insinuate this violence? I'll let you share.
To me, there's some people that really they're not really Americans. Let's put it that way. They are not really Americans, and they are going against the American government. And I do believe that they think this is their opportunity to go against the American government, right? And to facilitate some things that they have harbored themselves. And now it's coming to fruition and manifesting that these beings have always wanted this to happen. So now when others are doing it, they are now playing into it and supporting it. There's no way ICE can be the Gestapo. ICE is law enforcement. These beings are illegals, aliens, criminals. They're criminals because they crossed the border and they didn't come through the correct way to be naturalized.
Right.
And most of them are just here for resources. They have not contributed anything to this country to demand anything or feel entitled. So for Joe Rogan to go out there, we already know he's kind of what should I say? I can't say he's a radical for the people. He's been out here saying certain things before and I think he's lost followers and Americans before with some of his rhetoric, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, when he did the whole ivermectin thing, and everybody was like, "Oh, you're taking horse paste and all these other things," and he lost a lot of followers then, right? But other people were like, "Okay, at least you're saying truthful. You took the horse paste and it healed you, right? So you're not completely crazy, but it's inciting violence." In my opinion,
against our federal government.
What are we doing?
So I tend to not listen to those beings, right? I have to listen to rational, logical beings.
I mean, what are you going to do? Really? Truthfully, what are you going to do? It's really sad that we've come to this space in our country where, we've got the president, I don't want to say toying around, but we've got our president actually thinking about invoking the Insurrection Act. We've got him thinking about this. And this is something that, it did happen in 1992, like I was sharing with my audience. And I wasn't living in California at the time. I was actually out of state, but I remember it happening. I remember how we even got there with the whole Rodney King case and the lawlessness. But at that time, we didn't realize we had paid agitators, coming in to purposely destroy Leimert Park, which is actually the intersection where a lot of that happened, where that gentleman was, gotten out of his car and he was beat up in the middle of the street almost to death. New people that grew up there, but that area that was kind of like the heartbeat of Black Americans in Baldwin Hills, very affluent area of Los Angeles, now is predominantly Hispanic and Asian. Black people don't live there anymore.
And that's a huge problem. Why are we allowing others to come in and take over our spaces, our land? This they have no contributions. Nothing here is theirs because they don't have any contributions of equity. So we're fighting to allow illegal beings to take over our country.
What are we doing? What is happening? Because at the end of the day, let's just pause. Why are you protesting ICE? That's the question. That's the bigger question. Why are you out here trying to stop them from doing their job? Because if their job is to get people that have violated deportation orders that they've already been given to say they need to be removed from here, and they're just refusing to leave, ICE's job is to remove them. Why are you protecting this?
And you bring up a great point, because in my mind, I'm looking at immigration, illegal especially, and now we see legal also being an issue, right? But immigration now across the board is a major issue for Americans. And many Americans voted for this present administration to handle this issue. So why in the world at this point in time would we now say what this president or this administration is doing is wrong when we voted for this?
Right. Right. That I think that's the $1 million question. How did we devolve into this? Right here, it's like you've already Minnesota defunded your police. You got 600 police officers. Really? I mean, I'm sorry, but the town of Roseland, yes, is small and it sits next door to South Bend. They have more than 600 officers in the city of South Bend, and it's smaller than Minneapolis. I'm just saying, numbers matter.
And the thing about it is, you have past presidents that are doing or did exactly what this present administration and president is doing.
Yeah. When did it become wrong to want to protect our soil? When did it become wrong to say you are here illegally, you need to be removed? And oh, by the way, you've got deportation orders.
And that's the thing about it. We've been humane about it. They are giving them money and free flights to go wherever they want to go. And they're resisting.
Yeah. And we're still removing people that are rapists, that are murderers, that are pedophiles. They're still being removed. And you're mad? It's weird.
Well, you know, my theory is this is the coup d'etat. It is happening. They want to overthrow our federal government. They want people to align with their illogical views and beliefs. Every time you give them an inch, they want to go a whole mile, cross boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad.
Yes.
Truly, truly sad. So I'll let you have the last word because I got another guest coming on for our Prayer with Friday. I'm so excited. I got both of y'all. Got a twofer.
Well, the whole Supreme Court on the transgender, right?
Okay. Yes.
With that, I am in agreement. It's biological sex. If you are taking puberty blockers to now change your sexual orientation, that's not biological sex. So then I don't think you could be covered under Title IX nor under equal protection, because it was all under biological sex. That's my view of it. So I do believe the Supreme Court is going to stand on biological sex. Yeah. So with
I think they have to, only because they kept asking the attorneys to define what makes a male or a female, and they had no definition. It was very crazy because Samuel Alito, Justice, he was like, so can you give me a definition of what a male is? And they're like, oh, I didn't understand the question. What are you talking about? What do you mean you don't understand the question?
So that went to that Ketanji Brown not understanding what a woman is.
Exactly. Absolutely. 100%. I was like, this is a mind virus. And I call it the mind virus, social contagion, biological, disorder. Because people really don't understand what a male or a female is. And the thing about it is, nobody's asking to become an ornate toaster, right? If they're a female wanting to be a male, or they're a male wanting to be a female, you're trying to switch out parts. You can't do that, because a female will never produce sperm. A male will never have an ovum. We are uniquely and beautifully made the way we are. And we cannot not swap out external parts or wear different types of clothing or be more masculine or more feminine and say, I'm the other. No, you're not. And you
Yeah.
never will be. And it's a hard reality for some people, but you have to have the hard conversation and say no.
But is it really a hard conversation when we already understand this, most of us, right? And are that are sane and logical. Let me just put it that way. There's a
Yeah.
small percentage out there that for some reason they can't define what a male
Right.
is, what a
Mhm.
female is. But the majority of the American population, we
Right.
can't define the sexes.
And we have, and it's they almost try to make the smaller majority the small minority the super majority. And it's like, no, less than 1% of our population is in this bubble, and we need to help them because we don't want generations of people being eunuchs because they're not going to be able to create any more people. They're not.
Right.
They're
Right.
not. We cannot sign over to this. It's a test, in my opinion. I think it is truly a test of humanity to shut this down in
Yes.
that respect. In that respect. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and
Thank you,
hopefully you'll
lady.
be able to join me again. I did your video on the show earlier this week. Thank you. About
Oh,
President Trump when he was in South Carolina.
oh, okay. Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep.
Yes. I'll do some more clips as well, and we'll get together. I need to have you on the Freedman channel and let's talk politics, American Freedman. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Anytime. Thank you, lady. You
Okay.
have a good one.
You
Bye bye.
too. All right, you guys. I'm sorry my internet's choppy. I have to apologize for my technology because it's insane. But we have a wonderful guest coming on. Somebody who I've been trying to get here on the show and just coordinate with her because she is a powerhouse. She is amazing and she is running for political office. She's actually run for Senate in Illinois. And I did share with you guys her website last week is Dr. Pamela Denise Long. So let me bring her here to the stage. Good morning.
Good
Doing
morning.
great.
How are you?
Good. I'm so excited. I'm so
Me
excited
too.
to have you here. So I'll just let you introduce yourself to our audience and let us know, I've let everybody know you're running for senator of Illinois, but definitely share more about your campaign with us.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to be here. So thank you for having me. It's good to see you again. I am Dr. Pamela Denise Long. I go by Denise. I'm a native Mississippian, and I moved to Illinois in 1991. Although I grew up in Chicago from 8 to 4, not Chicago, but Kankakee from 8 to 14.
Okay.
I'm not sure Kankakee is close enough to Chicago to be called a suburb, but it's definitely up there. I am running for U.S. Senator for Illinois because I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a seventh generation American, and I've really had enough of the nonsense that's happening in the nation. And I think it's time for leadership that can deliver on promises and has the wherewithal, the expertise to actually implement policies that significantly change, improve the lives of American citizens and their children and grandchildren. I've been a Newsweek contributor, Fox News, Epoch TV, Black News Channel, all over the place, talking about the impacts of mass immigration on Americans overall, but particularly highlighting its impacts on Black Americans. One of the articles that I wrote for Newsweek a while ago, before I even really launched off into this real deep, was should Black Americans champion immigration? And I talked about the ways that we've been replaced in careers. Industries that used to be dominated by us have been turned over to other people. Talking about lineage-based investments, talking about what Americans First policy looks like for real. It's a beautiful slogan, but what does it look like in practice? And just in these streets, if you will, politically, advocating for the American people and making sure our financial, economic, social, and political equity is delivered in the nation that we've built.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that because I've really seen, and I was playing a video from Brandon Lehman, and he was saying how, with the Somalis, and we'll just take them for example, they've stole all this money, they did all these things. They didn't try to enrich the Black community. I'm just saying. I mean, I'm not saying there's, honor amongst thieves, but at the same time, it's like you took money and people had mercy on you. And instead of repaying the American country, the United States with you guys being more educated. Let's just say starting more businesses, right? To contribute to, proper capitalism and, bringing up your people, right? You decided to stay on welfare and not only stay on welfare, but take advantage of those programs to the point and tune of billions of dollars. And then look at us like, how dare you tell us that we're, mistreating you? And it's like, whoa. It's just this mindset and this entitlement for some that are not Americans, they're naturalized citizens, right? Or refugees that have come here. And I've told people, refugees are not necessarily vetted, right? We have mercy and then we bring them here. But people who come through the proper ports of entry, they actually want to be American citizens. And I didn't know, as a senator, as a candidate for senator, could you speak to that in wanting to make sure that people are properly vetted, even if they come over as a refugee?
Yeah, so this is such a great question because I think the Biden administration, with then DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, really confused people about these terms: immigrants, alien, refugee, and asylee or asylum seekers, right? A refugee, according to immigration law, is vetted when they are outside the country. Their situation is vetted, and we invite them into the country in a vetted status. An asylum seeker makes it to a port of entry, or they are inside the United States, say they came over here for a vacation or for family and something happened, and they are vetted, or they request asylum because of fear of substantiated and grounded fear of persecution based on 5 protected characteristics, like, race, I believe sex, political opinion, and some other protected groups. But it's a grounded fear of persecution. So it's not just, I don't want to go home, or I want a better job, or your country is more developed than my country. It is under specific grounds that you can prove that if you were to go back to your homeland, you would be injured because of those one or more of those 5 grounds. And so, to the point about people coming over here, that we provide a safe haven for various reasons. They came over because of family members here, and we let them do the chain migration, which we really need to revisit. Or they came over on a visa and they didn't leave, so they violated.
Yeah, that happens too.
Right. But for whatever reason, what we're finding, for whatever reason they stay, we're finding that people have come over here and they've taken advantage of our generosity, and they've lined their pockets in ways that were wasteful, fraudulent, and really abusive of the privilege that we granted them to be here. We know that those folks who do that, so let's say this. A lot of people do not like the United States, and a lot of people blame the United States for every ill that their country has experienced. Those folks are here to take, and they make it very, very clear. You've probably seen the videos where immigrants are saying, don't expect us to come over here to help you. We're here to get what we came to get. If I can come up at your expense, then I don't really care, because we're here to take back, as they would say, some things. Now, mind you, many of these people don't go back to their countries and build up the nation, right? I believe there are children still swimming in poop water in parts of Nigeria, but there are Nigerian doctors, engineers, and nurses all over the Western world, right? So people are here to help themselves.
Wow. It's truly sad that is occurring. So, like, my mind was racing. I was like, okay, what question am I going to ask you next? Oh, the Pause Act. Now, this was introduced by Chip Roy, I want to say in late last year, between November and December. And part of his act, right, he wants to make sure that birthright citizenship is clarified. We've got SCOTUS that's going to be hearing that hopefully in April of this year to determine that. But he also was talking about putting a pause, right, on immigration as we had done in the early 1900s in this country. Now, if you were elected, and I'm going to say when you are elected, we're going to just speak that into existence. When you are elected into the Senate, if it has not yet passed, would that be a bill that you would be in favor of?
You know, I've been talking about immigration. The short answer is yes. I like Chip Roy. I had the opportunity to actually meet him on the steps of the Capitol after he just left the floor, talking about child trafficking and whatnot of women and girls. Yeah, a couple summers ago. It was really awesome. I absolutely would. I think I've been talking about this since 2000, and whenever the Haitian migrant crisis happened, I wrote an article about it. That doesn't matter the skin color of the people who are flooding the nation. We're full. We can't take in all the people who want to be here. I was also one of the first people, I'm pretty sure, to consistently publicly champion a moratorium on immigration, both legal and illegal. I also woke up this idea about mass immigration, both legal and illegal, is wrong. It's still mass immigration, to break this thinking amongst American people that, oh, if you make them legal, it's okay. No, it's still mass immigration. There are only so many jobs, so many homes, so much stress on our infrastructure that starts to negatively affect us. We need a moratorium. And look, here's the other thing, Dr. Nichols, not just on H-1Bs, but all the visas. There are different types of visas that people can move and work between. We need to look at who is here. We need to make sure that we have zero tolerance. I'm Barbara Jordan on this one. Zero tolerance for illegal immigration. And the employers who hire illegals need to be penalized severely. And the elected officials who harbor illegal aliens need to have accountability as well. And I'm not seeing enough of that. So yes, I will sign the law. And I will also advance legislation that talks about applying existing immigration law and existing criminal and civil law against those folks who are harboring illegal aliens, because federal jurisdiction says that immigration policy is a job of the federal government. We do not have a secure nation if we can't control our own borders, and those who would seek to undermine our security need to be held accountable.
Right, right. And you're referring to in the Constitution where it talks about the Naturalization Act, and where it specifically states, okay, let's have our ears open. States cannot dictate immigration law. They have to follow law that already has been legislated by our Congress, and Congress only has the ability to alter immigration law. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Supreme Court reinforced back when Texas and Florida and other more conservative leaning states sued Joe Biden, the Supreme Court reinforced, this same conservative court, right, that we have now, reinforced that immigration policy and enforcement, specifically immigration enforcement, is within the jurisdiction of the federal government. So here we are in a situation where we have the laws on the books to both secure the borders and also hold people accountable, private businesses and NGOs, as well as elected officials, and it's not being used.
Right. It's not being done because, and this is my opinion, allegedly, people are making money on the back end, hand over fist. This is about money.
Yeah, and you're right. We did a Twitter space about NGOs and how there was, potentially money laundering, where the government, our own government, was giving money to these non-governmental organizations, and those non-governmental organizations were helping illegals traverse the Darien Gap, right, in Central America in order to get here, giving them money, so aiding and abetting basically their illegal entry, which is a crime. Being present in the country in and of itself is a civil offense, but entering the country illegally is indeed a crime.
Right, it is. And it's very interesting how Representative Crockett, tries to say it's not a crime. I'm like, it is a crime, ma'am. It's a civil infraction. It's still a crime.
Yeah, it's a civil infraction to be in the country illegally. It
Right.
is a crime to be to enter the country illegally.
Right.
And
Exactly.
the difference might be you overstayed your visa,
Mhm.
right? And you cross the border versus you cross the border illegally.
Right, right. Okay, so now we got to get into some more of this wonderful news. As you know, President Trump, he's been like living in dog years this time. He was
Hmm.
living in dog years the first time, but now he's really, really full steam ahead with just a lot of the different policies and measures he's putting forth. I know some of them, he's going to be visiting Davos, coming up here with the World Economic Forum. And some of the things that he's also trying to put in place are stopping companies like Vanguard and BlackRock from purchasing single family homes and artificially inflating
Yeah.
our housing market. And so I wanted to get your take on that, because that really, if he's able to really do that, this will make way for those who want to have a home. And he's also trying to, work with the Federal Reserve to lower the interest rates.
Absolutely. Private equity firms and large or businesses should not be able to purchase homes in the quantity that they are. It's sort of a monopoly and an antitrust issue in my opinion. I do believe that if he's able to work out this deal, we would have to codify that into law so that it's secured, because the next person will come along and have their own perspective on it. Interest rates, great. A lot of people are not selling right now because they have stellar interest rates that they were able to get. And the difference in a couple percentage points is significant, especially when we also don't have where a lot of people are living hand to mouth because wages have been suppressed all these years with mass immigration. So when I talk about improving the economic life of Americans, it's a constellation of policies and practices that need to happen in order to do that, right? On this one hand, you have both legal and illegal mass immigration. You have interest rates. You have big companies trying to buy up homes. You even have elected officials who are owned by their donors. Let's talk about that. Who aren't doing the things that they need to do in order to secure life, liberty, and happiness, and all the beautiful things for the American citizens who sent them up there to do the job. So,
Wow. I mean, it's a big job, but what I'm grateful for in the Senate is that there are things that can be done to really help change the lives of American people. And I'll give you this last question, because this one's kind of a big one. So right now, they're not threatening another government shutdown, but recently the ACA, they've agreed to extend that for 3 years, right? I want to get your perspective on that, because I know that President Donald Trump also is trying to look into, maybe something else that we can do besides the ACA. Then, in my opinion, that benefits insurance companies, not the people. So I wanted to ask you about that. But I also wanted to ask you, looking at the last government shutdown, do you think it could have been avoided? And if you had been there, it's just a wonderful hypothetical. What do you think could have been done to mitigate what happened?
Oh man. So, I don't agree with extending the enhanced subsidies, which is what they're talking about here. During the COVID pandemic era, they passed some enhanced subsidies to cover people up to and including those who make 400% the federal poverty level. So that's like $65,000 for an individual, and I think like $84,000 for a couple. So that's what they're talking about. And notice that they don't generally put numbers on that. I don't think that should be extended, because since COVID, what are we, 6 years almost come March?
Yep.
Okay. Everybody up there should have been looking at and planning what's the off ramp for these subsidies, and they weren't. I believe Republicans have been attempting to gut Obamacare and get rid of it and proffer something different since the ACA was passed. So how many years are we post ACA at this point? So what have folks been doing when all of this has been on the books, right? The Children's Health Insurance Plan, right, program is up for reauthorization again in 2017 when I am sworn in. So are we going to have another crisis that people haven't planned for? So I'm a planner. I'm a project manager amongst the many other things I do. My doctorate is in organizational development and my specialty is implementation science, which is what my research focused on. So how do you go about taking a vision, a project, and the steps needed to make it efficient and effective at the end? So I start where we want to end. I think when it comes to the shutdown, I would plan better. I would be advancing the conversation about the things that are coming up for reauthorization and how do we go about solving them. We're so busy with, I don't know, rhetoric and throwing bombs at each other that they aren't doing that basic project management sort of stuff. Were I in DC at the time the shutdown would happened, I would have certainly tried to tone down some of the rhetoric. I would hope that I would have been doing a good enough job watching the clock and the calendar that I would have known and had processes in place already to address the healthcare crisis. Since they have extended the subsidies or are planning to extend the subsidies, I am going to push for resolving this in my tenure. So I'll have 6 years in the first term at the Senate, making sure that we are implementing health insurance programs that benefit the citizen. So, health savings accounts, medical savings accounts that are guaranteed renewable. It can inherit the money. You can bequeath it, I should say. You can use the money for retirement funds if you don't use it all, and making sure that we're subsidizing the consumer. But here's the other thing. When I run the models on going back to cash rather than using insurance, where people say I can go to my dentist and pay $200 instead of paying $1,000 a month.
Right.
I'd like to see more catastrophic healthcare so that you have that when you really need it. And otherwise, people using cash and health and medical savings accounts instead of spending all this money on insurance that most of us don't actually get the value out of in the first place. And contrary to the president's perspective, I don't think that your medical bills that you're delinquent on should be on your credit. I think Biden was right on that. One of the few times I've agreed with him, but when it's right, it's right. The way that we have made healthcare so unaffordable, it seems wrong to me to penalize the people who can't pay for it.
Yeah, it is really crazy. And I'm glad that you brought up, just the HSA, the health savings account, because I've always seen like if you're in a state and you're already paying taxes, right? It to me, it makes sense for each and every resident of a state. I live here in Georgia to have a HSA account. So if you need over-the-counter medication or, whatever it is, or even, to go to your pharmacy, if you have to go to the doctor, to your point, and you pay your visit or whatever, it's already there in an account for you. It's not being messed with by insurance companies who are middlemen, by the way, but that's a whole other conversation. But just really having that one-to-one with the doctor. I really like the idea of just a cash payment system where the insurance companies are completely out of the way.
Yeah, and the models that I've run show that the first year or two would be like an economic shock where everybody's trying to figure out how the systems work, but we can also design things, right, and off-ramp things rather than just having this cliff to make that transition work better. And then within 5 years, we're back to a system where if you pay by the method that you have. In addition to that, think about this, Dr. Nichols, when we don't have all these other people here using our system, right, and our infrastructure raising the prices because they're using the ER as their primary care physician, right? Bringing all of these, foreign pathogens. Let's just be real. The vaccination system as well as health is different from country to country. Then we also see a decrease in the overhead for hospitals and the like. So once again, it's a constellation effect, and that I think our Congress needs to do a better job of thinking about when we are writing laws. And that's another thing, a strength that I bring, besides me being a healthcare practitioner, occupational therapist for 30 years. I'm keen on designing systems that are efficient, effective, and prevent waste, fraud, and abuse. So there's a manageable complexity that my expertise can bring to this. And I'm looking forward to how I can serve the people.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the fraud that has been found, it's always been there. And I kept telling my audience this. I was like, it's somebody on the inside. This is an inside job. Okay, it's not an outside job. It is somebody on the inside that knows what's going on.
Well, and nobody's watching the books. We write these checks and aren't feeling any sense of responsibility. As a healthcare practitioner, I've seen, before we changed how we do elder care, I saw that where we were billing Medicare like $800 per patient who had a stroke and was getting physical, occupational therapy and speech therapy, and that didn't even include the residential element and the nursing element. That's just
And transportation.
Oh my gosh. And it's wild. No one's really watching the money. There's a money tree that's shaking in Washington, D.C., and it's not shaking upon the people. It's shaking upon businesses and foreign entities as well.
Yeah, yeah. And the NGOs, right? And so I'm kind of glad that they are kind of, turning off the faucet, so to speak, in Washington in a lot of these areas, and hit dogs are hollering because they're mad because their money's stopping. But it's a good thing. Because we really need to see, to your point, where the money's going, who it's going to, and why it's going there. Because we found out in Minneapolis, unfortunately, that some of this money is going towards terrorist organizations. They're literally taking millions of dollars through the airport and taking it to Somalia. It's like, they're a war-torn country. Why are you taking millions of dollars to a war-torn country? Somebody else is benefiting from that money. That's there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Minneapolis is just one place. And even if it's like we think about the feed the children or whatever that program.
Feeding our future, right? Whatever that program, and the many people who were involved with that. It's not even the tip of the iceberg. It is a snowflake. Okay. In that iceberg, because it's happening everywhere. And it's not just happening amongst foreigners, it's happening amongst Americans, and it's happening amongst legitimate cornerstone organizations as well. All of it needs to be audited, and we need to treat the people's money with more respect than we have been over this generation. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Please tell people where they can follow you, where they can donate to you, because it costs a lot of money to do this, you guys. We need to support Dr. Pamela Denise Long.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate it. I'm here fighting for the people, and I'm doing it in a different way. If you haven't checked out my Newsweek column, feel free to do so. Please do so. I started writing for them, I think, into 2020. And I am on Facebook, Long for Senate 2026. So that's Long, FOR Senate 2026. You can find me on Twitter X with the same @ handle. You can also find me when you go to Twitter. If you look in the search bar, just type Pamela Denise Long, you'll find my personal Twitter, and you'll also find my campaign line there. And or campaign profile, please take a look at my website, which is www.longforsenate2026.com. There's a green button on there for donating. Please donate to the campaign. We're actually right now, Dr. Nichols, in the midst of a money bomb campaign where we're asking 1,000 people to donate $25 in the next 26 hours. So 26, because the election is in 2026. That will help us purchase more campaign materials. I am downstate Illinois, so I travel to Chicago quite a bit, some 40,000 miles on my car. And it'll help us just connect with more voters. We're trying to win this U.S. Senate election. Early voting starts February 5th, and the actual election is on St. Patrick's Patrick's Day. So we want to make sure people vote early, for me, if they can, or they definitely plan to show up on St. Patrick's Day to make sure that we win this U.S. Senate seat, so that we win for you in changing your bottom line and, the bottom line for your children and grandchildren's future as well.
Yes, because even though, Dr. Pamela Denise Long is in Illinois, the Senate affects all of us. It affects all of us. And so we need a proper Senate in place with people with decent values like Dr. Pamela Denise Long, who really want to do better for our country and make our country better. Thank you so much for joining me here this morning.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Okay, guys. So with that, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get into some more breaking news. So thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, and we will see you on the other side.
At All Sides, we give bias ratings for hundreds of media outlets. By freeing people from filter bubbles and providing different perspectives, we can all be better equipped to understand the world and each other. So how do we do it?
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Thank you guys so much for joining me here on our Prayer with Friday, where we pray Thanksgiving and cover going into the weekend. Now, there are a few more videos that I wanted to hit before we finish today's broadcast. And thanks again for Dr. Pamela Denise Long joining us here on the program. And guys, please make sure that you visit her website. That's Long for Senate 2026, Long for Senate 2026, and that's FOR. And also, she said they're trying to do a money bomb next 24 hours. Okay. So make sure that you visit her website. $25. I know it can be a lot for some, but for some people, that's lunch for one person with a tip. Just saying. So if you have the financial ability to do so, please visit her website. That's longforsenate2026.com, because it takes a lot of money to do this. Trust me, I invested a lot of money when I was running for president of the United States. It's not cheap. I did have to, drop out of the race because it's very difficult to keep up, with the amount of money that they are looking to have. So again, check her out, Long for Senate 2026. So the next video I wanted to bring up, and I wasn't aware that this happened, but apparently there was an issue of ICE in Florida. So I'm going to let Governor DeSantis take that.
Of what they're doing. So one, if ICE is doing operations, I mean, that's obviously their call. Our guys have helped in different situations. I announced the other day, we had almost 20,000 state and local of apprehensions just in the last 9-10 months. I do know there was a woman who came out and assaulted one of our troopers. Let me just tell you guys, this is not Minneapolis. That is not going to end well for you in Florida. You have a right to go out there and criticize government policy. You can go out there and protest within, obviously respected zones. But the idea that you're going to assault one of our troopers is unacceptable, and you are going to face consequences as a result of that. So I'm not sure what all their what DHS is doing. Yes, our guys can assist. A lot of that is being driven by there. I was the other day out when we did the announcements. I think some of you were there at the Baker facility that we created, and that's worked very efficiently. That is an existing facility that kind of got retrofitted, and you've had folks go, process, and then they're able to be flown out. So all in all, Florida's really leading the way. But there was you have these politicians in Minnesota, and they're attacking DHS or attacking ICE agents. They're doing all that, and you have a lot of conflict. And they were like, why aren't they in Florida or some of these places? And the reason why you don't see, because we're cooperating. We believe that, we have a responsibility to help the laws of the country be enforced. And I just think it's odd, you have some people that, they don't want, there's certain laws they don't like, and they think that the way to combat that is not to win elections and change laws, but to just simply assault the people who are enforcing the laws. These guys that are out there, they've been treated very horribly across the country, and they really have a target on their back. And I know you had that one woman in the city of Jacksonville government putting out information. Look, that's not the way we roll here in the state of Florida. We're going to respect that, respect the law enforcement, respect the rule of law. And, if you want an open border or an amnesty or something like that, the way to do that, I wouldn't support that, but there's a process. Reality is, this last election, presidential election, was decided in significant part because the outgoing incumbent had opened the border, and it caused a lot of problems with many millions of people coming in illegally, including Maduro sending people to the border from Venezuela. He was emptying out his prisons, and he was sending them here to the United States. That's why when we did the Martha's Vineyard transport, most of the people on that first flight were from Venezuela. And there were a lot of people that said, oh, the governor's really done it now. The Venezuelan Americans aren't going to vote for him, down in South Florida. And in fact, next time I was down there, they were high-fiving me because they're like, Maduro is sending. And that's not what they wanted to see. So, you just see, this stuff all the time repeat itself in terms of some of the shenanigans. But that is something that these guys have a right to be discharging their duties and to get involved with any type of assault. Look, in Portland, do they let you throw bricks at police and all this and get them? Yeah, maybe they do. I don't know. It's not a place that I would ever be able to get elected dog catcher in, so I don't concern myself with why. But in Florida, that just ain't the way it's going to work. So, say what you want, even, however you want to do that, but not go beyond that line.
And I definitely appreciate, I don't always agree with Mr. DeSantis or Governor DeSantis, but that I agree on. He made a great point. If you do not like the laws the way they stand, there is a process. There is a civil governmental process. Run for office and change the laws. Again, he said, I might not agree with you on how you're doing this, but you cannot just say, I don't like it. I'm going to go kicking and screaming like a toddler. You better fix this. It's like, no. Overwhelmingly, the country voted. Overwhelmingly, the country voted to close the border. The border is now closed. People feel safer in certain states. But it is this attitude and an incitement of violence by our political officials. By the way, I wanted to get into another short video because I know we need to go into prayer. So I wanted to play this one briefly.
I'd like to now introduce to you my colleague here to the right of me, the Honorable Congressman Tim Kennedy.
Thank you. First, let me begin by thanking the ranking member of Homeland Security, past chair and future chair of the Homeland Security Committee, Betty Thompson, for organizing this effort, and for all of my colleagues for joining us here today. For far too long, we've seen a Department of Homeland Security under this administration that is unchecked, unrestrained, unhinged, and at this juncture, unconstitutional. Secretary Nome began her tenure by unleashing ICE into our cities, ignoring due process, and detaining U.S. citizens, lawful residents, and children with cancer. On top of that, she's defied federal court orders, withheld FEMA dollars intended for disaster survivors, blocked meaningful oversight of DHS, and obstructed the United States Congress time and time again. And in recent months, she's only doubled down on her mission to terrorize our communities and militarize our streets, which has brought violence to our neighborhoods. Tragically, These reckless decisions culminated in the death of Renee Good, a mother of 3, a devout Christian, a partner, a poet, and a beloved community member of Minneapolis who had the courage to stand up for what is right. This department has lost all credibility, allegiance to the rule of law, and any shred of decency and integrity that was left. House Democrats are here today to stand up for the rule of law, protect fundamental rights, and fight for the future of all of our communities across this great nation. It is time for decisive action to end this systemic abuse of power by Secretary Nome. The safety of the American people is at risk, and the future of our country hangs in the balance. Kristi Nome must resign immediately, or this body must act to impeach her.
Now that's
I'd
very
like to now
interesting that they're calling for an impeachment of somebody that we voted for the administration to handle this. It's very interesting. I find it also very interesting how we said a lesbian is a devout Christian. Stop that. Those can't even go in the same sentence. Now that might upset some people. Well, people that live alternative lifestyles, they're Christians too. No, they're not. You are living in opposition to God when you choose that lifestyle, period. 2 women, it's not a marriage. It is a civil union. It is not a marriage. Marriage is between a man and a woman, and that's biblical. Now, if a man wants to have a civil union, right? And when I say man, I'm just talking about humanity. A civil union where 2 women can be in a civil union or 2 men can be in a civil union, then that's what our laws allow. But spiritual, divine law says between a man and a woman. Homosexuals are not Christians. Now that might make some people, again, upset. It cannot be, because it goes and it flies in the face in opposition to God. It's heresy. Those are the things we need to pray about. So with that, let's get into our prayer, cover, and Thanksgiving going into the weekend. So God, thank you so much for, bringing us here today, God. I pray that every person under the sound of my voice, Father, that you look after them, cover going into this weekend, because some individuals are in states that are under siege, Father, that are in violent areas in their neighborhoods, God. And I'm definitely praying, Father, that you quelch this demon of anarchy and divisiveness and murder and just help us, Father. Help us to look towards you, God. I know that there are those that have been turned over to a reprobate mind, where they believe that good is evil and evil is good, God. And we are so grateful that you've allowed us to see everything laid bare before us, God, and how you're going to handle it, how you're going to take care of it, how you are going to get us to the other side. And I believe that you will. I believe that everything is going to be okay, because it's not on us to fix it. It's on us to pray. And it is on us to do right by one another. But fixing it, I know you are the only one who can completely fix it, God. So I'm definitely, again, just thanking you for everything that you're going to do and everything that you've already done. And protect us as we go to and fro going into this weekend, Father. We love you, and it's in Jesus' name we pray and give thanks. Amen. So with that, thank you guys for joining me here for another broadcast of Unfiltered Vision News. Last week, this coming up week, will be our last week of airing 7:30 to 9:30. And then after that, we'll go back to our regular 7 to 9 programming. So again, thank you so much for being here with us. And we're over 200 subscribers. I'm so excited. I know that might not seem like a big number for a lot of people, but it's pretty big when you started from zero. So I thank every one of the subscribers and listeners. Thank you for taking the time out to join us here on Unfiltered Vision News. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.